Hello everybody, my name is Bill. This is the channel Canvas and Chords, and today is part 2 of building the 00 acoustic blues guitar. And in today's episode, we're going to build and install the marquetry or the rosette, and then brace the top on this. And I want to talk a little bit about how we got there. I don't know how I feel about using the term that I am a pro woodworker or a professional woodworker, but I do not do things like make furniture and work on cabinetry and all of that. My experience is as an industrial woodworker. I ran a large woodworking machine shop building a specific product or products, and I did that for 35 years. So I have a lot of background in wood technologies, understanding the machines, machining processes, and all the things that go into building a product out of wood in an industrial environment. So yes, I guess I am a woodworker or professional woodworker, but again, my experience is not in some small wood shop building custom cabinets for people. But my interest in wood and woodworking is not strictly that as an industrial woodworker. I have done stuff in my own shop for 40 years as well, but my stuff, if you follow my other channel, 6 Round Studio, you would understand more the stuff that I do in my shop. But I've always wanted to build a guitar. I've played guitar. My parents bought me my first guitar, a little Sears acoustic, when I was 10 years old. And I think they wanted to expand my horizons. They wanted me to become more rounded, I guess. They wanted me to become a musician, a guitar player. And so they bought me my first guitar. When I was 10, set up lessons, and for the next 5 years I took lessons, guitar lessons from a teacher. And anyway, but I've always wanted to build an acoustic guitar, sort of expanding my woodworking experiences and skills. So I bought this book. This book was published in 2004, and I think I bought it right when it came out. So what are we, 22 years ago. It's called Build Your Own Acoustic Guitar by Jonathan Kincaid. The complete instructions and full-size plans, and in the back of this is a set of plans that I never opened, never used, but all of the techniques required to build a guitar is in here, and it's all pretty much the same kind of processes that we followed when I started working with my instructor, Al. I had already been building electric guitars by that point, because building electric guitars, though they're cousins to each other, the process of building an electric guitar is more of an industrial machining kind of process or thinking than having to have certain understandings about wood characteristics, and how things work against each other in an acoustic guitar. So a good friend of mine, Rick, you would have met Rick on the other channel if you were following this. He was also interested in guitars and building guitars, and one day he discovered that in my hometown was a very famous luthier, and I never knew the guy was there until Rick found him, and then we went down and we interviewed him to find out if he was somebody that would be compatible with our thinking and our philosophy. We then did that. We signed up for class. We became, over the last 15, 16 years, we became fast friends. So more than just an instructor and a mentor, he is a good friend of mine. And this was the first guitar that I built. This, and I'm still building it. We'll tell that story here if you stick around. This is an archtop guitar that I decided I wanted to dig right in. And of course, Al tells me, he says, nothing like jumping in on the deep end, because there's a lot to building one of these. And I spent, I think, 5 years on this to get this thing basically constructed, when I ended up finding that double O acoustic out in Texas, and I already told you that story in part 1. If you haven't seen part 1, go back and watch that. We came back and I told Al that I wanted to stop building that and start building this. This little double O, it's done, it's complete. Everything is intonated. I finished intonating the bridge. Everything plays. It's in tune. The action height is correct. So it is ready to go. I plan to do some recording with this in the future on the channel, kind of designing or thinking about what kind of music I'd like to do with this. The only thing that's left on this double O is I do want to put some electronics in it. I do want to put a pickup in this, and so we'll end up having to drill the back for the jack pin and the strap. So that's still coming, but the guitar itself is done. Stylistically and artistically, I'm very interested in Art Deco. I think it's one of the more beautiful art styles, and I have been enamored with this for decades. I have several books on Art Deco, and this is just one of them. So when I started doing the design work on these two guitars, I wanted to make sure I was adding some Art Deco styling into them. And when you look at my fret dots, and I'll show you a close-up of the fret dots. When I was designing the fret dots, for me to go as part of my my style, my signature, I designed these fret dots and made a whole bunch of them. And those fret dots, they show up both on the double O and on the archtop. So those sort of are my signature fret dots, and those are all made out of maple and walnut. So that was very early in my thinking on these two guitars. So you have that that Art Deco in those fret dots. But I've also been very interested in veneer work. So I bought this tape on veneering, but you can learn a lot from YouTube. You can learn a lot from videos. And I did. I learned a lot watching this video on working with veneer, but I think it's always better to learn from another person, somebody who's experienced, like I did with Al, learning how to build these guitars with my friend Al. There's so much information, there's so much skill, there's so much experience that you can only get when you're with somebody who knows how to do this stuff. So I did the same thing with veneering. I signed up for a class with one of New Hampshire's finest furniture makers, Terry Moore, and went and took a veneering class with Terry, learned how to do veneering, and you'll see a lot of veneering in my electric guitars. I do a lot of top veneering. And so not only did I watch this video, but I also spent a lot of time with Terry learning how to do this. And then marquetry is another totally different skill set, but it involves veneering in the end, because you still have to attach or apply that marquetry to whatever it is you want that on. So I did that with this arch top, and you can see that there's this marquetry that I applied to the headstock, and then of course I have to cover the truss rod hole. So I made an extension here, and that'll end up being applied there at some point when the guitar's done. So I learned to do marquetry. It's intense, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of precision, not for the faint of heart. So we learned veneering, we learned marquetry, and all of that with the eventual goal of building guitars. So I applied a lot of veneering, marquetry, woodworking skills and techniques. For instance, the bottom of this neck, rather than using it all maple, I inletted in this piece of Circassian walnut to make it stand out a little bit. Always pushing the things that I do, pushing my skills, trying to experience new things. So a lot of information, but today's video is about building the marquetry for the Rosette, installing the Rosette, building and installing the bracing, the top bracing, and then at the end of it, we will also tune the top so that we get the best pattern of resonancy for the top and the way it vibrates. So a lot of talking. Let's get to the video. Let's get to building the Rosette and the top. When I started this guitar, or even when I started this one, I was not making video, so a lot of these will be stills. I took a lot of pictures of this thing as I built it so that I could relate it back should I decide I wanted to build another one. There is a few videos. The quality is probably not as good as they could be, but we'll put all of that in. So if you made it this far into the video, let's start building a Rosette and bracing the top on this 00 blues guitar. The first thing that we did was to line out the locations for the bracing, and then to reinforce where the sound hole would be cut out. Following that, we glued in the reinforcement. While the glue was drying under the pressure of the go bars, I designed and cut out the shapes for the Rosette using Macassar ebony, cutting them into individual parts for the segmented circle of the Rosette. I also cut out thin maple veneer that would be the lines visually separating the ebony segments. I glued the segments in thin maple veneer together, and when the glue had dried, I began to cut out the shape of the Rosette. With the final ring of the Rosette cut out, we then needed to remove enough depth of material in the soundboard to glue in the Rosette. We did this with a very sharp circle-cutting chisel. When that was done, before cutting out the sound hole, we used the circle that was cut out to ring the Rosette with thin purfling in both ebony and maple. We cut out the sound hole and I lined that with thin ebony. In keeping with the theme of recycled woods, Al had some old softwood planks he managed to score years ago from a broken down and disassembled 300-year-old Swiss barn. Like I said in an earlier video, if you keep your ears open and your connections current, you get to discover a lot of this interesting old stuff.
It's like the problem we run into, one of the problems we run into all the time, it was either leaning this direction or it was back against something, and that's the south side, but it had a lot more branches on that side, or it was leaning that way.
It's amazing. We chose the pieces that had the best tone, cut it into bracing for the top, glued it in place, and from there began the process of tuning the top for the best sound and resonance. I had mentioned earlier that the reason we had chosen Al as our teacher and guide was his belief in using science and engineering as a part of his build philosophy. When it came time to tune the top resonance, Al was not an adherent to the vague and too often subjective use of tap tuning. The idea that by holding the top and tapping it on its different parts, you could tune the top to a standard by cutting away the bracing until the sound you heard defined the best top for the guitar. Al used a much more scientific method of Chladni patterns to determine when the top, at different frequency, was performing the best it was able. Ernst Chladni, 1756 to 1827, was a German physicist and musician, and is often called the father of acoustics. He is best known for developing techniques to visualize sound vibrations, creating Chladni figures or patterns of vibration of things, and discovered that things at a frequency vibrated with some consistency as to build data points for them to make them more or less repeatable. Al had 40 years of Chladni data points, or patterns, which allowed us to build some really great sounding guitars. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that little glimpse into building the little 00 blues guitar. We have more videos coming up on the blues guitar. I got more work to do on that 1907 mandolin, as well as the twin tellies. There is a lot of content coming up, and I got some music that I'm working on as well to record. Guys, if you enjoyed this, you know the score. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I love you, and I will see you in a video coming up very soon. Bye, guys.